I thought I would respond to these three vegans who made a video trying to refute Aajonus Vonderplanitz, since it's the only video that hasn't been refuted that you'll see when you search up Aajonus Vonderplanitz refuted or debunked, or even if you're just looking for videos of him himself. It's this video, Frank Tufano's videos, and then Durian Ryder's videos, which are the only big anti-Aajonus videos on YouTube. And then there's the small videos made by Godis, Sparage, Tards that are oh well, Aajonus is wrong because vegetables have anti-nutrients and he advertises vegetable juice. Just shows they obviously don't understand it. Frank's videos got debunked by Milk Jar. Durian Ryder's videos, very old, got debunked by Aajonus himself. And that's why I'm going to respond to this one. This one is also old. It's 6 years old. Let's begin.
What's up, everybody? Thunder Bay personal trainer Logan Blake here. Today we're going to be debunking Aajonus Vonderplanitz. He is the creator of the Primal Diet. Aajonus Vonderplanitz was born John Richard Swigert. So he decided, his name was John, and he thought it was a good idea to change his name to Aajonus Vonderplanitz.
He's making it seem as if him changing his name was just arbitrary and he just did it for no reason. And he just maybe did it to sound cool, because the name sounded cool. But this is from his book, We Want to Live, Volume 1, this story, page 32. Hi, Dick. Oh, that nickname, all the reasons I changed to a Greece Roman sounding first name that I liked flood my head. No matter how Dick was said to me, the innuendo was prevalent. It was like wearing a bright name tag with scum printed on it. My brother's classmates and some teachers often used it to patronize me. Vonderplanitz is from one of his ancestors. He didn't make it up. Aajonus, of course, he just took that. I think it was because a kid was calling him it or something. I forget. But yeah, it's not just some arbitrary reason. Also, yeah, not John, I guess, would be his first name, but his name would also be Richard, and nickname for Richard, Dick. So that's the reason.
He was born April 17th, 1947 in Denver, Colorado, and he died August 28th, 2013. He was an American nutritionist and activist in Malibu, California, and in Thailand, and he developed the Primal Diet. Vonderplanitz claimed that in his 20s, he was diagnosed with multiple terminal cancers, all resistant to conventional treatments, but he reversed them all through raw meat.
So I think he's reading from the Wikipedia, and of course this is the old Wikipedia, because this video is older, but this is a post from the official primaldiet.net website on archive.org. This post is no longer available. Might be behind member content, but I'm not sure. And the post goes as follows. Aajonus is covered in Wikipedia. The line, he claimed hospital diagnosis of cancer soon ruled terminal, needs to be updated. Please see for yourself the letter from Elnis Dresner, MD, dated December 19, 1968, wherein Dr. Dresner states, Dear Mr. John Richard Swigert, Dr. Goldberg has brought to my attention that you have ceased chemotherapy treatments, as well as you well understand, in cases of multiple myeloma, cancer of blood and bone, no other treatments exist. As my colleagues and I have informed you at UCLA Medical Center, the survival rate with advanced multiple myeloma as in your case, without continued treatment, is 3 months to 1 year, and he didn't die. So then it can't be considered terminal. If you change your mind, we will be pleased to resume your therapy. We simply hope it will not be too late. Thank you for allowing us to help you as much as we are able. With very best regards, Dr. Aajonus Dresner. And of course, this is in the 1960s. He had multiple myeloma in his early 20s, and he died a premature death in his, I think, late 50s or mid 50s. I'm not sure. I don't know. Around there, 50s. I'm pretty sure. So that's about 30 years that he exceeded his death date given by his doctor.
Increasingly popular, the primal diet is principled on raw meat, raw eggs, raw dairy, raw bland fruit, raw coconut cream, and unheated honey. He wrote 2 books, We Want to Live and The Recipe for Living Without Disease. Aajonus fell from his 2nd-story balcony at his home in Thailand when it gave way. He suffered a broken spine and internal bleeding and was taken to the hospital where he died. Sounds like a tragic accident, just like the Atkins guy. I wonder if they checked him for clogged arteries.
What would blunt force trauma from falling off of a balcony have to do with clogged arteries? What is this vegan brain nonsense?
So here's food for thought. If eating raw meat is so good for you, how do we explain all the people that have died or gotten sick from E. coli, listeria, botulism, stegospores, salmonella, and campylobacteria from eating animal products or foods contaminated with animal products?
This question is based on a false premise that bacteria are bad and viruses are real. I do not hold to the germ theory. I hold to the terrain theory. And for more information on how things like E. coli and salmonella, and in general bacteria, aren't bad, watch my previous video of the decimation of clavicular, where I give multiple studies. I show how salmonella and E. coli reduce cancer and have been used to treat cancer. Trichosuis has been used to treat Crohn's disease. We're made up of mostly bacteria. Bacteria lives in symbiosis with us. Parasitic worms already live inside of our gut, and many more inside that video. Now, the way we explain it is that most of the deaths that are reported that are coming from bacteria and viruses are actually from anaphylactic shock, which is an allergic reaction to the treatments and not the disease itself. The other but less common reports of death are from the person going through a heavy detox. Disease-like symptoms, parasites help you detox. A lot of things are a detox. Even earwax. Earwax buildup can be a detox. But mainly disease-like symptoms, as long as you're not ingesting a lot of toxins every day and you're eating primal, then you're detoxing. Usually when you get disease-like symptoms. And so some people that go through these heavy detoxes, like vomiting and diarrhea, they don't have enough raw animal nutrients and fat in their system to make up for the ones that they're leaching to get rid of these toxins. Some other cases are just pure propaganda and are done when the family of someone who has died and has been found to have some bacteria like salmonella in their gut is surveyed, and they find that the family drank raw milk or, God forbid, ate raw meat. The death of the family member will be blamed on the eating habits of the family in conjunction with the bacteria found inside of them. Aajonus Vonderplanitz has pointed out cases like this of an 11-year-old girl drowning, and they found salmonella in the girl's system, and they surveyed the family, and the family drank raw milk. Later found out that the girl never even drank raw milk. She was the only one that did in the family. So there are cases like that where it does happen. Some viruses are also man-made, like AIDS. For more information on AIDS, see the video linked in the description, the Strecker Memorandum, AIDS is a man-made disease. If these people were to just read Aajonus's books, they would know what he has to say about these topics, and they would get a lot of their questions that they have in this video answered. So here is what Aajonus has to say about the topic from his book, The Recipe for Living Without Disease, page 169, chapter 25. Are bacteria, viruses, and parasites dangerous to humans, and is microgenocide a rational pursuit? Today, there are several astute scientists challenging the postulate that bacteria are the threat. Before the Los Angeles County Medical Milk Commission, Dr. Mark Harmon, a dentist, stated that his medical education trained him to blame disease and decay on bacteria and virus. He stated that the genocide of microbes has not reduced dental decay any more than it has reduced disease in general. Disease continues to increase at an astounding rate. Science, medicine, and technology have waged a horrific war against microbes, while tooth decay and other diseases continue to overwhelm and devastate our lives. Dr. Harmon concluded that the war against microbes is futile in eradicating disease. At the University of Utah, John R. Roth, professor of biology, studied salmonella for 40 years. He stated that salmonella is mostly reported as a pathogen, but lives beneficially as part of the gut flora. Here's the citation for that. The Great Egg Panic, LA Times, January 4th, 2000. He believes that the idea of eliminating it is absurd because salmonella is distributed widely. Rarely does it get across the gut wall. When it does, it is simply an irritation at the gut wall. Symptoms can range from loose stools to flu-like symptoms. The idea of eradicating microbes like salmonella is ludicrous because they are everywhere, in your nose, mouth, on your skin, and pets.
So through my research on Aajonus, I came across this website here where somebody reviewed one of his novels, and they say that in the book, Aajonus claims that you should be eating green bananas over the ripe ones. You shouldn't wait until the fruit is ready. Sweet fruit is bad. You should pick it before it's ready, and then it's healthier. Okay, and the second thing, he says you should be eating white bread baguettes. How is white bread primal? It also says here he has a self-appointed PhD in nutrition. I don't know how you self-appoint yourself a PhD. I would like to do that. I mean, that seems pretty easy. Just to skip school and be like, I got a PhD? I don't know how that works. No wonder people look up to this guy. He has a huge cult following. He's like some kind of superhero. Captain Aajonus Vonderplanitz. Tra-la-la!
As I said before, if these people were to read Aajonus's books, they would have their questions already answered. Here is page 188 of We Want to Live. Fruits are produced by vegetation. Vegetation is the plant, that is, the leaves, stalks, and roots that constitute the plant. Like spinach, parsley, celery, rhubarb, carrots, onions, and garlic, the following foods are often thought to be vegetables but are fruit. Bland fruit: tomatoes, peppers, broccoli tops, cauliflower tops, corn on the cob, mushrooms, cucumber, and other squash. Fruits are mainly used for cleansing, including detoxification, hydrating the body, and supplying sugars for fuel and enzymes for digestion, utilization, and assimilation. Fruits that are not bland fruit are best eaten unripe and very firm. When unripe, they contain less sugar and more enzymes. Fruit eaten highly sweet and ripe causes much over-emotionality. Page 206 of We Want to Live. About starch. I said in my first book that starches are very necessary, even to the point that I recommend that a few people go against the main principle of eating raw foods. I suggested that they would benefit from eating simple cooked starches sometimes, like unsalted bread, etc. But because I later observed the collection of toxins even when those people ate plenty of raw fat with the cooked starch, in my second book and in the revision, I advise that necessary extra starch be derived from eating the nut formula. You can find the nut formula inside of this book, The Recipe for Living Without Disease, and I'm pretty sure also inside of this one. as much as possible. Note that all meat contains starch. That is what herbivores eat when they eat seeds of grasses, especially their preferred seeds, those that have fallen to the ground and dried. Aajonus's PhD was also not appointed from himself to himself. It was an honorary PhD given by a university in London called Richmond University. This is from Aajonus. I'd gone all over the world, lecturing everywhere, helping people doing quite well without a PhD until 2005. And when 2005 came around and they gave me that PhD, honorary PhD, it didn't change anything. But it certainly is not just an ornament. And Alex Jones says Mike Adams says in the show, oh, this guy, he goes and seeks employment to get a job with his false PhD. He's got all this nonsense that doesn't relate to me at all. I don't go looking for work. How can I go looking for work as a nutritionist? I am self-nutritionist. I created this diet. Nobody can teach me. This is from Aajonus again. Question: where did you get your PhD? Aajonus: Richmond University in London. Now, they came to me. Now, I've had three universities come to me and offered me honorary doctorates over the years because I started getting popular. Some very influential people were nominating me for a Nobel Peace Prize because of the way it changed people over and made them happy people and relaxed people, rather than new, lovely people. It was getting a lot of press from 1997 on, so I had a university in India that approached me and they offered me a doctorate, and I said, why do I need a doctorate? It doesn't change anything about me, and it doesn't give me anything. It just straps me to the system, and you think that I've got my degree from your school. Not gonna happen. So I didn't do it, and I had another one from here offered, and then this one offered from England, and they have a lower biological BS degrees, Bachelor of Science degrees, and in dietetics and nutrition, but no PhDs in it. I said, I'll take you because you have nobody else to fly, to do that, so I'll take yours. So I took theirs. It hasn't helped me at all.
So the guy that did the book review lives in Australia, and he says that Aajonus came to Australia last year and gave a talk in Robina. Obviously this is old because Aajonus died in 2013. He says he knew 3 people that attended, and they shared how Aajonus was sick from food poisoning the whole time. He had to cut his talk off early, and he spent the day and night vomiting in a bathtub and over the side of a balcony. When he was questioned what was wrong, Aajonus said, I was poisoned by the Thai mafia. Aajonus also charged one of his friends $400 Australian for a 1-hour consultation. Aajonus looked at his scalp and said, you have a very rare fungal infection and you need to consume no water, eat green bananas, and put pinholes in some eggs and leave them on a windowsill for 30 to 40 days until they turn black and then eat them. So my friend did that and ended up in the hospital with an IV filled with antibiotics and steroids in order to fight the infection that was raging through his throat and lymph glands.
Obviously there's no evidence for this claim since it's just an anecdote from the author, but I would be less inclined to believe the author since they've made dishonest interpretations about what Aajonus has said in his book, and considering this is supposed to be a review, it seems suspicious that they would make that blunder if they have actually read the book, and this isn't just supposed to be a piece on him trying to discredit him. What I have on the screen right now is what I got from the Twitter AI Gronk when I asked them to find where this claim comes from.
One of the claims that Aajonus makes in his book is that he had 300 heart attacks by the time he was 22 years old. I don't even see how that's possible. That's almost a heart attack a day for like a year.
A lot of people have a hard time believing this story because they have a misunderstanding of what heart attacks have to be. Heart attacks don't have to be serious intense near-death experiences. They can be short bursts of uncomfortableness inside the chest. And here is 2 pieces of evidence that show that the story is a lot more believable than initially presented. Here is a father who survived 30 heart attacks in 2 days. And here is an article. Standard medical tests miss nearly 2/3 of heart attack diagnosis.
So as I mentioned earlier, Aajonus died when a balcony collapsed, and he fell to the ground and he broke his back quite severely next to the first rib, and he couldn't move his legs. He went to the hospital, but he took over. He wouldn't let the doctors take more than 1 x-ray. He made the doctors feed him food. He made the doctors wrap his torso in a certain way. He wouldn't accept pain shots. Soon, he started regurgitating all his food and all the blood in his stomach. Then he went into a coma, and then later on died, all because of stubbornness.
Yes, he did refuse medical treatment, but if you know his story, you would know why. That's the whole reason he started eating raw meat as well, is because he wanted to kill himself because he was so sickly due to the medical treatment he got. No, he did not puke up his food. There's no source that says that. That was added in by the author, clearly to make it seem as if the food just didn't help him or it wasn't digested.
So eating raw meat isn't even the craziest part. It's not only raw, but Aajonus sticks the meat inside of jars and then leaves it on the counter, rotting, collecting more bacteria for like a month. And he was on the show Ripley's Believe It or Not because his diet is so crazy and absurd. So through my research on the primal diet, I was looking up websites and I found this one called The Primal Parent. And it teaches all about primal pregnancy and primal parenting. I guess they want you to feed your kids raw meat and eat raw meat when you're pregnant. I mean, that sounds perfectly safe. I found this book on the website called Primal Mums Look Good Naked. I guess when you eat raw meat, it gives you a perfect physique. For more on Aajonus Vonderplanitz and the primal diet, here's fellow YouTuber Plantin.
You went strict vegan for a while. What were some of the consequences you were seeing for your body?
Well, because I had anemia, the blood cancer and the bone cancer.
Right.
I didn't have to be on it but 2.5 years before I went down to 98 pounds. My bones started disintegrating. I got leukemia again.
That sounds like a caloric problem. If you're losing weight, dropping weight so rapidly, you're not eating enough calories.
Right. First of all, calories are a measurement of a specific form of energy. Explicitly defined, explicitly measured as such. They are a measurement of heat energy explicitly. Yes, there is a mathematical way to convert one form of energy, which is a construct, into another form of energy. However, it requires that for utility of that there is some means, mechanism, or bit of kit or machinery by which energy can, in the real world, actually be transferred from one form to another. Okay, so to say that a calorie is equivalent to a kilojoule of physical work, for example, or a coulomb of the flow of electrical current, fine, mathematically, absolutely, and we can show how the equivalence levels were worked out. Great. However, does the human body have any bit of kit or machinery or capacity to collect up heat and use that for metabolic process? No, it doesn't. Heat is expressed, or the physical thing that causes the temperature of a piece of water, for example, a sample of water to be what it is the energetic state of the electrons, the valence electrons in that water. The energy transfer, the transfer of quanta of energy between electrons in one substance and another substance, a food substance and a bath of water, is achieved via photons, electromagnetic waves in the photon field, the photonic field, if you like, at a certain range of wavelengths that we experience as heat. Okay? That's what it is, nothing else. Explicitly defined as such, measured as such, That's what it is. Can we collect those up and use those for metabolic process? No, we can't. So there is no equivalent between calories and actual physical work being undertaken by the human body. Okay. That said, we're often told that calories in, calories out is a good tool to use to predictably suggest what will happen to our weight over time if we control our calorie intake. You're not actually controlling your calorie intake. If you do control the amount of food you eat, what you're doing is you're controlling the amount of mass you are putting into your body. The only thing that will affect your mass, your weight, is the balance between mass in and mass out. A case-limiting example of energy in, energy out. No amount of absorbing photons nor exuding photons, emitting photons, will change your mass. Why not? Because photons don't have any rest mass. They can't be brought to rest. You cannot change your weight by emitting photons. You cannot change your weight by retaining photons. It is the mass retained that changes your weight.
I was living on a bicycle outdoors, which is very stressful. You know, the temperature changes from day to night can be.
Once again, what does that have to do with a vegan diet? Once again, this seems like a calorie problem.
But living in that as a fruitarian, strict fruitarian, no lacto, no ovo, no meats at all, I disintegrated heavily.
Well, if you're eating just fruit, is that enough calories? Also, what about vegetables? You didn't claim that you ate vegetables. You could get calcium from vegetables, higher in protein.
So for some reason he thinks that the video he's reacting to is Aajonus trying to debunk veganism, which it isn't. That's why he brought up him living on a bicycle. It's because that's just what he was doing when he was a raw fruitarian. Also, he didn't just eat fruit. This is from page 118 of We Want to Live. I regularly ate as much as 3 pounds of nuts daily, 6 avocados, enormous amounts of fruit. So this goes against him thinking that he would just be getting only things from fruits, and that also he would be eating little, because 6 pounds of nuts daily, if we want to take into account calories, that would be 8,000 calories. So he would be perfectly fine.
The next night, they killed a jackrabbit and offered it to me, ripped it up and put it at my feet. And, I was also a philosophical vegetarian because I left animals.
Yeah.
Just like a child, if a child sees an animal, its first instinct isn't to kill it, it's probably to pet it.
Yes, maybe inside of civilized society with civilized people and domesticated animals, but even inside of this environment, there's still some nuance.
So I made deals with different farmers to milk their cows or goats, shovel manure, any work on the farms in exchange for all the food I wanted. So I was drinking a gallon of raw milk a day, eating anywhere from a stick to 2 sticks of butter a day, which is a quarter to a half a pound of butter a day.
So once again, of course you're going to gain weight because you're eating high fatty foods. And fat is very calorically dense. What do you expect?
And chicken and eggs and everything I could eat. And within 2.5 months, I gained 50 pounds. Wow.
Obviously, it's called a caloric surplus.
Okay, so calories are not an appropriate, scientifically robust, or valid means to remotely accurately even estimate the amount of energy actually contained in a bolus of food.
You could do the same thing on a vegan diet, just eat more. If anything, eat more fruit, eat more vegetables, have some oatmeal in the morning.
And I looked like a scaled Arnold Schwarzenegger, the first time in my life that I had muscles.
Anyways, this guy was basically starving himself. He was just eating fruit, obviously not enough fruit. He wasn't eating any vegetables, and all of a sudden he started to eat raw milk and butter, and he gained weight. He ate a dead rabbit, and he thinks that's the miracle to life. But really, when he was vegan, he did it all wrong. He was just eating way under his maintenance calorie. So I'm going to turn it over to Conscientious Omnivore to finish off this video. Peace, guys.
Thanks, Plankton. Thanks, Logan. after such a thorough debunking, I was at first thinking like, man, what am I going to find on this guy to actually contribute something, interesting and, something that you guys haven't covered. But then you start looking into this guy's wacky stuff that he said, and there's just so much outrageously, like, just bald-faced lies that this guy says that it's almost like it's a gold mine of craziness to go through. So, my first, kind of thing that I'm going to jump to is everybody's favorite, raw meat eating person probably is our friend Sverige. Sverige has some, great inspiration from Aajonus, and I've already done a debunking video about him, so if you haven't seen that, go over to Logan's channel and watch that. But there's some crazy stuff in this great compilation that he's put together. You can listen to it. I picked out a few choice moments here. Let's start with this first spot.
These minerals are very beneficial in trace amounts. The mercury, the high mercury in flying fish and swordfish is very important for their buoyancy. Without that mercury, they could never reach the heights that they do. The flying fish would never be able to fly without that mercury.
That's great. So fish need mercury to be buoyant, so they can float in the water. They don't use theirs, like fish bladders, where it helps them, float around in the water and go up and down because they change the amount of air they have in their body. No. It's not a bladder. They use mercury to stay buoyant. Interesting, because mercury, the last time I checked, if you look at the specific density of mercury, it's 13.56 times as dense as water, meaning it weighs more for the same amount of volume. So therefore, if you put mercury into your body, you're going to be less likely to float. It will certainly not help you, be able to fly out of the water and be more buoyant, as Mr. Aajonus Vonderplanitz claims here. So just crazy stuff like this. It's like any bit of like digging around, you can just immediately find just like how crazy this guy is. I don't know. It's just like I rarely want to, just get this upset when I try to do like a debunking. But anyway, this guy is just another level.
The elemental composition of swim bladders in some deep water fishes of the North Atlantic, from the Russian Journal of Marine Biology, volume 42, published the 21st of January 2017. The first data on the elemental contents of the swim bladder wall of three deep water fish species from the North Atlantic, the snub-nosed spiny eel, the Calp's arrow-toothed eel, and the rough-head grenadier, are presented. It is supposed that survival of specimens of the first two species upon their ascent from the great depths that subject them to sharp changes of pressure is connected with the properties of the durable and flexible swim bladder walls with increased contents of some metals: aluminum, copper, iron, mercury, potassium, manganese, chromium, and cadmium. Adaptation to sharp changes of pressure in the snub-nosed spiny eel and Calp's arrow-toothed eel probably develops during ontogeny, during the transition from habitation in the epipelagic zone, during the larval stage, to the deep water habitat of the adult fish.
Okay, next, he's in that same interview, he's talking about how mercury is like mercury, like your body will store mercury more from the effects of smoking marijuana. So check out what he says and just listen.
You have 16 times more tars in marijuana than you do in a cigarette. So of course that held on to the mercury, spread it throughout the system. I had one child that at 15 and a half, he saw these drug dealers hide 4 kilos of grass. So he stole it for the next year and a half, or year and 9 months he smoked it. Took him a whole year and 9 months to smoke it with his friends, and he had the largest amount of cancer, mercury in the brain I'd ever seen. And
so in case you missed it, sorry, I had the volume kind of set wrong, but anyway, he's saying that marijuana has 16 times the amount of tar in it than tobacco, and because of this additional tar, when you smoke it, your body holds on to mercury at a higher rate. So first he's telling you that, mercury in small amounts is not a problem, keep eating fish. Then, because it'll help the fish, jump out of the water and all this kind of stuff, and in trace amounts it's not a problem. But then he's saying that it is a problem when it's too much. So it's like, okay, well, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, fine.
No, it is not the amount. The dose does not make the poison. It is because the mercury is in a completely different form. Here is Aajonus Vonderplanitz, the Primal Diet Workshop plus Q&A of February 24th, 2001. No, because swordfish is very high in mercury. It's my favorite, but once you freeze it or cook it, it turns the mercury into a poison. There's 3 kinds of mercury. There's organic mercury. There is stable mercury that you find in rock and in nature, and then there's toxic mercury. In food, when the swordfish goes around eating the plankton and gets its mercury, it's a healthy organic mercury, and it helps it be able to fly and jump and more buoyant. So it's useful, but as soon as you cook it, it becomes the lethal kind of mercury. When it's raw, it's beneficial. This is also just common knowledge. There is 3 kinds of mercury.
But he's saying, smoking marijuana is going to get your body to absorb and retain too much mercury. So he gives this example of this boy who came to him, who at the age of 15 had, basically stolen 4 kilos of grass off of drug dealers, and he smoked it over the course of 1 year and 9 months. And even this, the way he tells the story, I mean, if you ever, look at somebody who's a liar, just a compulsive liar, they're, making up stories, on the spot. This guy is a classic case of that. It's he can't even keep his little thing straight of it's 4 kilos of grass. It took him a year and 9 months to smoke it, but then he's a year and 3 months, a year and a half. He can't even remember the details, and it's okay, these are kind of insignificant. Maybe it's just nothing, but it's just one of these things where you can almost feel he's making up the story as he goes along, and he just says crazy stuff. So then, he jumps through a whole bunch of hoops. He's talking about how sick the kid is, and he came to him, his mom was looking after him, he couldn't even move. He had the worst case of mercury poisoning that he'd ever seen. So listen to this next section here. Let me check the volume. Yeah.
So this kid had 4 kilos of mercury contamination. Well, you notice they haven't.
The kid had 4 kilos of mercury contamination. I think it's literally he's screwing up his own story. He's remembering the 4 kilos of drugs, of the actual marijuana, but he's saying that he had 4 kilos of mercury poisoning. You look up what a lethal dose of mercury poisoning is. It is 1 to 4 grams, not kilos, 1 to 4 grams, and then it says per kilogram body weight.
Yes, the man misspoke. I don't know what you're trying to get at here. Aajonus was an overworked and busy man. He was doing multiple Q&As and Primal Diet workshops every year. He was fighting the legal system for raw milk to be legal in multiple states while being his own lawyer. He was writing 4 books after the first 2 he published. He was also doing the Primal Diet newsletter, as well as sleeping only 4 to 3 hours a day, not to mention his clients and consults. So I don't expect the man to be perfect in every Q&A or workshop. That's why you read the books. Anyway, even if he were to say this man had a lethal dose of mercury inside him, that wouldn't be a problem, since there are cases of people living after taking a lethal dose and only showing minor symptoms. Here's a case: full recovery from a potentially lethal dose of mercuric chloride. A 19-year-old female ingested 2 to 4 grams of mercuric chloride, a highly toxic inorganic mercury compound, in a suicide attempt. The estimated lethal dose for mercuric chloride is 1 to 4 grams, and fatalities have been reported with as little as 0.5 grams. She presented with nausea, abdominal comfort, vomiting of blood-stained fluid, and diarrhea. Her initial blood mercury concentration was 3.58 megaliters per liter, significantly above the normal levels. The outcome was that, despite the potentially lethal dose, she exhibited only mild to moderate poisoning symptoms. She was, of course, treated because she went to the hospital and she survived, but we don't know if she would have survived if she didn't go to the hospital.
So this is they're just telling you that 14 to 57 milligrams per kilogram body weight for a 70 kilogram person. So it's he's just completely messing up parts of his own story. I think he wanted to say like there was some like high level, but it's like maybe he was trying to say it was like the upper end of the spectrum. Maybe he was trying to say grams. We don't know. It just doesn't even matter. It just doesn't even matter.
So why would you bring it up or speak about it at all? It makes no sense.
This is just like crazy stuff. You listen to this guy, I don't know, man. You got problems. Anyway, next up, different video. Check this one out. This is a long presentation. He's like got in front of all these people in this auditorium style setting, and he's just like bamboozling them like crazy. So this section, he is talking about how the fats are kind of like protective for your body, and he actually starts off by saying something that I agree with. So check this out.
You notice that in all the research there is out there, where do they find the largest concentrations of fat? I mean, the largest concentrations of poisons in the body, toxins, in the fat.
Yeah, that part I agree with. You find concentrated toxins in body fat. That's what happens. That's bioaccumulation. That's where like toxins are stored in the body, and when you eat animals and you eat animal products that contain lots of fat, you are ingesting super high levels of toxins, because that's how bioaccumulation works. You have like, a certain amount in the environment. You have like in the grass, in the air, there's like all sorts of poisons now all throughout our environment, sadly. And when you have an animal that's like say a cow eating grass, any of the residues that might just have fallen from the rain, even if it's organic, pasture-fed, grass-fed, everything, never saw a chemical in its life, it's still bioaccumulating toxins, just like all of us are, unfortunately, because we've just poisoned the world around us so much. So when the cow eats, I don't know however many, hundreds of pounds of, say, grass throughout its lifetime before you kill it and eat it, you are basically eating the equivalent of that toxin that it's bioaccumulated its whole life and stored in its body fat.
Aajonus here is not just speaking of excess body fat, he is speaking of the fat found in the brain, glands, and bone marrow. And when these fats are full of toxins, the toxins being ingested will either go to the excess body fat if the person has it, or the organs if they don't have the excess body fat. So factory farmed animals will accumulate the toxins mainly in the bone marrow, brain, glandular tissue, and organs, unless the animal is obese and has excess body fat. But Aajonus does not recommend to eat the brain, glands, organs, or fat of factory farmed animals. The main fat you are getting is from the intermuscular fat found in the muscle meat, where toxins don't accumulate if you're in a country that can't get good sourced animals or dairy. And if you are in a country that is able to get that, then you get it from good sourced, unsalted, unheated butter, raw milk, raw eggs, raw cream. I will not go over the problems with veganism in this video, but conscientious omnivore is holding an impossible standard for food, since all vegetables and fruits and grains will have the same problem. And there are over 15 micronutrients found in animal foods that are not found in plants.
There's actually a study that I've shown before in previous presentations that I've done, where you can see that human exposure to persistent organic pollutants occurs primarily through the consumption of animal fats like fatty fish, meat, and dairy products. If you could read through this study, it's actually close to around 95% of your persistent organic pollutants come from these animal products. So it's just an insane figure. You should not be eating animal fats.
Just looking at the methodology of the study, we'll see that it's a meta-analysis of multiple other studies, including epidemiological studies, which can form on cause and effect. This is just complete rubbish.
And then he goes on and talks about how, this is just like, you should be fat, and that, that's what protects you. And then he goes into this story about how he used to work at this, this like hippie commune kind of place where they were originally vegetarians, but then they adopted his diet and they got all healthy and whatever. And he talks about this story about this biker dude who comes in for treatment and help from him, and the guy is like 50 whatever years old, and he's been leading a hard life of drugs and drinking, but his high body fat has protected him, because all these like toxic materials are stored in his body fat, and he's protected. And then he goes and he talks about how he's going to check out the guy's organs. Listen to what he says.
I said, I can see the damage that you did, yet iridologically, I could see that his glands and organs inside were relatively clean.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, I can see the damage that you did, yet iridologically, I could see that.
I couldn't understand that word he said. Let's hear it again.
Done alcohol and drugs for about 25 to 30 years. So I said, I can see the damage that you did, yet iridologically, I can.
Iridologically. Iridologically, he can see that his organs were healthy. I have no idea what this word is. I've looked it up. I think he's talking about like he's done some kind of scan, maybe an x-ray, like radiation, irradiated. I know that word, irradiating or irradiated. I think that's what he's trying to say, but he's making up a word as far as I can see, as far as I can tell anyway. Like I couldn't find any single reference to this online of what iridologically means. I think he's just making up stuff that just sounds kind of scientific or doctor-like.
Since this video has come out, he has understood what iridologically means in reference to iridology, the system that believes that you can see someone's organ health through their iris.
This guy is just like a piece of work, man. So anyway, so he's saying that the guy's organs are super great and healthy, and he looks like a 30-year-old, you know, on the inside. But on the outside, he looks really bad because you can see all the damage of the cocaine and drugs and you know, booze. Crazy stuff. Anyway, next part. He's talking about body fat. He's saying how his BMI, his body fat percentage is, sorry, not BMI, his body fat percentage is around 26%, but that he doesn't look it, and he gives the reasons for why he doesn't look to be 26% body fat.
But I only look like I'm maybe 12, 15% body fat. Why? Because fat molecules, when they're raw, are small and tiny.
Interesting. So his fat molecules are small and tiny because they're raw. I think he's trying to convolute like this idea that he eats raw. So he eats raw fat molecules, and that's why his fat molecules are small. This is like, this has nothing to do. Your fat molecules are not changed by whether you eat raw or whether you eat cooked. Your fat molecules have nothing to do with what you eat. This is sort of like the idea of like, if you eat money, you're going to be rich. It's like you eat small fat molecules versus large fat molecules. It doesn't change the size of your fat molecules. It's like he's confusing things.
When you eat a food that has fat in it, some of it is digested and used for energy right away, and some of it is stored. So if you're eating a cooked fat, then it's going to store as that cooked fat. I don't know, it's hard to understand here.
I just can't understand how anybody listens to this guy. It's insane. I was just going on and on, like, there's so much, it's like a gold mine of craziness. Next thing, he's telling people how everybody should be fat, and he's talking like seriously fat, and he's telling people that they should be fat for at least two years or more, and then he basically says that people should keep their fat on for 30 years. Listen to why.
But I like people to keep fat on for 2.5 years. I would like people to be fat for 30 years. It takes 40 years, according to Pottinger's work and Howell's work with animals that they got sick, to get to optimal health. It took 5 generations. 5 generations of animals.
He's talking about Pottinger. There's a very well-known kind of like in the meat, raw meat, primal diet, whatever. The first I've heard about it actually was from Milk Jar, so that should tell you something. But basically, these guys love to reference the work done by Pottinger on cats. There was this guy, he did some experiments, sounds pretty horrible and cruel. Read up on it if you're bored. But basically, in a nutshell, he made all sorts of claims about how people should be eating raw meats, especially organ meats, and raw meat in general to be healthy, because he did all these experiments, and what he found was that when he was feeding cooked food to the cats, they were less healthy and they developed all sorts of degenerative diseases over the course of multiple generations versus the cats that got fed raw meat, and especially organ meats. And now we have Aajonus basically talking about how he wants people to stay fat for 30 years because that's how many, generations it would take of your cells to regenerate. He's talking about animal experiments, which are already dubious at best. I've done a whole video about this. Check it out if you haven't seen it on my channel, about how animal testing is completely, counterproductive in any kind of like medical testing for humans, for human use. It's just a horrible waste of time at best, and potentially could even be harmful because it could lead you to wrong conclusions.
I did watch his video on animal testing, and his example is penicillin being tested on rats, guinea pigs, and rabbits. The rabbits had no effect after the penicillin, the guinea pigs died after the penicillin, and the rats survived after the penicillin. This is a completely inept analogy since they aren't even the same animals, but also because a medication and diet are not separable, and we don't know what the rats ate, or the guinea pigs, or the rabbits. Moreover, food and synthetic chemicals are not comparable in the slightest, since synthetic chemicals are needed and always harm the person they're given to rather than helping them. No tests need to be conducted on them, while eating is a necessity and deals with the biological nature of man himself. I would want to know what are the biological differences between cats and humans that would make it so that the symptoms found in ponderous cats from eating cooked meat would appear without invoking evolution, since that gets into a whole other debate that I know you wouldn't win. Also, he's just being an incredulous hypocrite when he says this, because his POP study that he linked earlier uses animal studies.
And there's a huge opportunity cost. But anyway, he's basically talking about a study that was completely unscientific, never corroborated, never reproduced, and certainly never in people, only in the cats.
Again, we see conscientious omnivore holding an impossible standard. For this to happen, you would need to get multiple sets of twins that have the same level of health and turn them into real human guinea pigs and lock them in a cage 24/7 where they get fed the same food on a dietary regimen like the Pondra cats and watch them almost 24/7, which no researcher or whoever living in a country that has ethics will ever do, nor should it be done. But when it comes to animal testing, you see, I have an objective ethical framework that comes from the Bible and tells me I have dominion over these animals, and if I want to use them to prove something, then I can.
And basically it's like the laughingstock of any serious scientific medical research person, and he's talking about that, and that's why he wants you to stay fat for 30 years. Crazy stuff. Next, he talks about blood sugar. He talks about his own example where his pancreas wasn't working, and he was, diabetic as a youth. And after adopting his wonderful, magical raw meat diet, he repaired his pancreas to the point that when he did his blood sugar test, check out his results.
But I did take the glucose tolerance test. So I was buzzed. But they never saw a pancreas take the sugar level all the way down to 54. Usually stops about 104.
Now that's really interesting. I was like, man, that sounds really low. I'm not too knowledgeable about blood sugar levels, but I said, that sounds really low. What is low blood sugar? Oh, anything below 70. He's saying he went down to 54. That's hypoglycemia. That's dangerous. You can pass out. You can have serious health consequences from having blood sugar that low. And he's saying that he had that after he ingested the glucose test. It's like, how does anybody listen to this guy? I don't know.
I am not sure if he did this intentionally. I would think so, because I assume he watched the entire lecture he's responding to, but right after he cut off Aajonus to talk about his blood sugar level being too low to handle, Aajonus says how he was able to handle it.
Usually stops about 104. But my body got rid of that sugar and had all of that insulin to do it. Tons of insulin to be able to handle to take it down to 54.
Just like with the mercury earlier, people are able to exceed the expectations of the medical industry and what they claim will happen.
Next, this is probably the thing that got me the worst. He's talking about the Black Plague, so bubonic plague, and the cause of it. Check this out.
What happened with the Black Plague? What was the Black Plague about? An infectious disease? What were they burning in their homes, in their fireplaces, cooking with? Coal. Coal. The British government, French governments, all of them, especially British government, made coal available. What does coal have in its tar burning? Mercury.
You heard it first here. The bubonic plague, the Black Death, was not caused by a bacteria that we know about and we can study, and it's something that they can do a blood test and confirm that you have that bacteria present in your body. No. So reading stuff like this and looking at that and seeing that the bacteria is just a known cause of this illness. No, it's not this. It's mercury. It's mercury in the coal. Like, I flipped out when I heard this part. I was just like, wow, this guy is just completely nuts. And people listen to this. People listen to this and they buy into this guy. I couldn't believe it.
The Black Death, translated and edited by Rosemary Horrocks, Manchester University Press. It is said that the disease takes 3 forms. In the first, people suffer an infection of the lungs which leads to breathing difficulties. Whoever has this corruption or contamination to any extent cannot escape but will die within 2 days. So Aajonus is right, but I would also hold that what we think to be the Black Death is mainly due to human intervention, and you can read about this in the 5th chapter of the same book.
Anyway, a little bit speechless. Next, and this is the last part, I promise. If you're not convinced that this guy's just a quack, check this part out. It talks about advanced glycation end products. There is a wonderful set of videos. There's actually a bunch of information put out on the nutritionfacts.org website by Dr. Greger about AGEs and their effects and how they cause inflammation and age your body and are really harmful and all this kind of stuff. And it's basically something that is found in foods. It can be increased and made worse by cooking, especially dry heat cooking. Makes the AGE content of food higher, generally speaking. And here is Aajonus talking about why you shouldn't eat carbohydrates.
The carbohydrates in the human system are a problem, according to Columbia University. They found that the human produces advanced glycation end products, AGE, and they do age you, AGEs. What they do is they collect at a rate of 70 to 90%.
Then he just goes on and explains about how, clearly we're not meant to eat carbohydrates because they contribute to aging and inflammation and all this kind of stuff through these advanced glycation end products, AGEs, and how, you shouldn't be eating carbohydrates and instead you should be eating the raw meats and the animal products like dairy and all this kind of stuff. Well, like I said, check out nutritionfacts.org. You'll see a bunch of stuff where it is a legit thing, and it does age you. It causes Alzheimer's and a whole bunch of other kind of health problems. But you can also look up this study, which shows you a table of the AGE content of various foods. And they talk about various cooking methods and how things are made worse and how things could potentially, be cooked with less AGEs produced and all this kind of stuff. There's a few key points here to look at. Check out, where it is, I didn't highlight it, here it is. Animal-derived foods that are high in fat and protein are generally AGE-rich and prone to new AGE formation during cooking. Now, Aajonus does try to tell you that, eat the meat raw because if you cook it, it makes it worse. That's true, but here the main point. In contrast, carbohydrate-rich foods such as vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and milk contain relatively few AGEs even after cooking. Okay, so, skip the milk. Obviously, this isn't the only thing to consider for health, but it's basically, they're saying directly, carbohydrate-rich foods contain relatively few AGEs, even after cooking. It's a direct lie. He's saying the exact opposite of the truth. And if you look into this guy, the more you look into it, the more you'll see that that is what's happening. He is just a liar through and through. I don't, say this kind of stuff lightly, but this guy literally tells you the opposite of the truth, and people are sitting there gawking, listening to him like he's, telling them something, wonderful.
I could go over the study, but I don't want to bog down this video since the study has a false premise. Here is what Aajonus has to say about the AGE content inside of meat and animal products, because he has spoken about it before. This is from the Primal Diet Workshop plus Q&A of June 2nd, 2012. Quote, "That means that every time you eat a carbohydrate, whether it's fruit, whether it's grain, no matter what it is, you will store 70 to 90% of that byproduct in your body. If your body makes the glycogen from pyruvate, which is from protein like egg white, your body makes a lot of pyruvate from egg white. There's no advanced glycation end product. There's no garbage left that bogs the body down. What happens if the body is bogged down with advanced glycation end product? It's just like carbohydrate that's formed. It's sticky and thick, like syrup, like molasses."
So anyway, I realize this is a bit long. I don't know, hopefully you enjoyed it. I just found that, listening to this guy is just, mind-bending, but not in a good way. All I can say is, if you have people like Sverge, looking up to this guy, I can now kind of start to understand where he gets some of his own crazy ideas from, and, where it, kind of pushes people to do these kind of extreme things, and why they think that it's a good, diet to follow, and why it's healthy. So, yeah, I guess choose your company wisely, and, look into this stuff yourself. This information is readily available. Go out there and check it for yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed this collaboration. I certainly did. Definitely subscribe to both Plantain and Logan's channel if you guys haven't, signed up for that yet. Both of them have great content up. It was great to work together. If anybody else, wants to work together on some similar kind of videos, do let me know. And hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.